Hey everybody, I'm Dave Lieber and welcome to episode number 1 of the Dave Lieber Show. This is very exciting. We're making television history. We're talking about today our new play, it's actually an old play, Amon, the Ultimate Texan, about Amon Carter. And I have my 2 guests with me, my 2 special people, Kelvin Dillks, who's the actor who's been playing Amon since 2019, and Connie Sanchez, the director who put this all together after I wrote the script. Almost 10 years ago, it seems. Welcome to the Dave Lieber Show, the first episode ever.
Right.
It's great. I want the record to show that we're starting with the subject of nudity. Okay, I think that's how I want my show to start. And so, Kelvin,
I'm not taking my clothes off.
No.
Good.
Amon Carter used nudity to beat Dallas in the Centennial Fair. And let's talk a little bit about that, Kelvin. What the heck is nudity doing in this show?
Well, Amon and Ma Ferguson didn't get along too well, and he wanted the state Centennial Fair to be in Fort Worth, but then Dallas got the state Centennial Fair, and with it they got some federal money. They got $15 million. Now this is the middle of the Depression,
right? And
Dallas gets $15 million, which was huge money during the Depression. And so they start adding on to Fair Park. In fact, you can still see some of the remnants of the influence of the state Centennial there in Fair Park.
Yeah.
Well, Amon was upset, so he thought, how can I beat Dallas? He said, y'all go over to Dallas for education, but if you want to see something good, come to Fort Worth. And so he had Billy Rose, his producer of his show, the State Centennial, bring on Sally Rand, the world's best tease girl on the planet.
Tease girl, okay.
Yeah, and she brought with her her entourage of dancers, and they would appear naked or as close to it as they could. And boy, the crowds turned out. They might go to Dallas in the morning, but they ended up their nights over in Fort Worth
for the entertainment.
Yeah. And so the Dude Ranch was changed to the Nude Ranch, right?
Yes, that's right. He built the Nude Ranch, and tickets were 25 cents, quite a big ticket back then. And he said they just lined up as far as I could see. They were going to get in there for the entertainment. So that's how he beat Dallas at the state Centennial. He called it, his version was called the Fort Worth Frontier Centennial.
So what was the idea that he could have so much power, that this man could, during the Depression, in a conservative town like Fort Worth, have nudity run rampant? How did he pull that off?
Well, he always promoted Fort Worth, and he never let politics or politicians get in their way. And even though there were mayors and stuff, he would tell them what to do, and he would bring in businesses to Fort Worth. It's been said that at the time of Amon's death in 1955, that 60% of all jobs in Fort Worth were directly related to Amon. So he would advertise Fort Worth. He was the biggest promoter of Fort Worth. In fact, I forget, at the time of his death, somebody very famous, it was Eisenhower, said that there was no citizen in the country that promoted their city like Amon promoted Fort Worth. And so what Amon pretty much said went, and people followed him. He was a leader.
There's 1 million people have moved to Fort Worth, and I'd say half of them don't know who Amon Carter was. They have a stadium named after a museum, but his power, Connie, was through owning the Star Telegram, owning and creating WBAP radio, and also what was the third, Channel 5.
Right.
And no one had that kind of power.
Right.
So
the first television station in the whole Southwest.
Right.
Pretty incredible. One of the first radio stations in the whole state of Texas was WBAP. And the play, it talks about how other stations start with K, but ours is so old, it started with a W. And he just brought in business and people and promoted, and is absolutely incredible. When we started this play, I heard the name all my life. But I honestly didn't know, and I hate to admit this now. We were rehearsing this, and I was learning the 52 pages of script. And I would say to Connie, do you think anybody will come see this show? Because it's a shame, but he was forgotten. Yeah. And Connie said, yeah, I think they'll come. And they came.
They did.
They're
still coming.
Yeah, they're still coming. And they need to come. Because when you come to see this show, you're not just seeing Amon Carter, you're seeing the history of Fort Worth. All of a sudden, Fort Worth makes sense. When you're driving around and you see this and you see this, Amon's legacy, I think, for Fort Worth is he really encouraged the ultra rich in Fort Worth to give. Yeah. And they still give today. The fact that the Kimball Art Museum is such a renowned. We have a Michelangelo in Fort Worth. How does the Kimball in a city of Fort Worth size have a Michelangelo? How do they have all the incredible? Amon encouraged and taught by example to give back to your community, and to this day, Fort Worth still does it. Yeah. So if you see the show and you drive downtown, you're going to understand Fort Worth better than you've ever understood it before.
I agree. It made Fort Worth understandable when I first learned about him, working at the Star-Telegram. He had been dead since 1955. I got there in 1993, and his ghost was still over the building. They were still doing the same things that they did. And we have 3 shows coming up this weekend. A Saturday matinee and a Saturday evening performance and a Sunday matinee at the Grapevine Palace Theater. And what's cool about that is July 13th is officially proclaimed as Amon Carter Day in Grapevine. So Connie,
yes.
You've told me like hundreds and hundreds of plays, but this one is really probably the most special, I would think, because we're doing our 62nd, 63rd, and 64th performance. So how has this changed your life, being involved in this great project?
Well, I guess in one way it changed my life because I learned so much about Fort Worth and Amon Carter. And having grown up on the north side of Fort Worth in the Diamond Hill area, Fostepco Heights, technically, and a stone's throw away from the stockyards, I mean, like Kelvin, I had heard his name. You hear the Carter Blood Care, you hear Carter Riverside, Camp Carter, but I didn't know who he was. And so learning about him and learning about the city, I mean, that was life-changing. And also, like Kelvin said, I mean, he gave so much. He was a person that had so much money and so much influence, and he used that to help others. He didn't use his fame and his influence and his money to promote himself.
Right.
And it wasn't self-serving. It was for everybody else. And he's still giving to this day, because so many of the companies he brought in are still in Fort Worth. Yeah. And so they're still providing jobs, kind of like that saying, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And that's what Amon Carter did. And he is still feeding, if you will, our city. And
through the Amon Carter Foundation, which is giving out how much money?
Over 800 million.
Yeah. And that's life-changing when you realize that. And for us as individuals, we might not have the amount of money that Amon Carter had, but we can still give back. There are so many ways. And he gave to everyone. And that's a lesson that we can all learn. If everybody did that, the world would be a better place.
What was his famous slogan? Man
can't live off his community. He must live with it.
Right. And that's the philosophy that many of us in Fort Worth have because of him.
Yes.
Let's go back to the talk about Little D. He hated Dallas with such a passion. And rather than tell about it, I'd like to show it. Can you roll the tape of Amon Kelvin / Amon talking about how much he hates Dallas.
Dallas, what's your name? What's your name? Amy. You're from Dallas. And who are you next to Amy here? Leslie. Where are you from, Leslie? Kansas City. Oh, she's exotic. And over here next to Amy, well, what's your name? Huh? Camille, where are you from?
I'm from Denver.
Denver. Man, we got them from all over the place. Is there anybody sitting by our friend from Dallas that's from Fort Worth? Anybody? Oh, you're from Fort Worth? Well, during the intermission, she may need help reading her program, make a change at the concession stand, finding the correct restroom. I guess you heard not too popular in Dallas. Well, Dallas is not too popular with me. They're my competition in everything. Nothing I like better than beating the stuffed shirt jerks on the other side of what they call Amon Carter Field. My good friend, fellow Texan, and Vice President of these here United States, put it this way. Cactus Jack Gardner. Amon wants the government of the United States to run for the exclusive benefit of Fort Worth, and if possible, to the detriment of Dallas. Yes, that's who I am. Amon Carter, lover of Fort Worth, but not Dallas. Why? I won't take ads here from Mr. Stanley Marcus because his store, Neiman Marcus, or as we like to call it in Fort Worth, Needless Markup, is over there in Dallas. Open one here, Mr. Stanley, then you and I can talk. I want you to know something. I always promoted Fort Worth in West Texas. I'll never forget the first time
It's never very, very good. I love that. That wasn't part of my script. You improvised that every performance, which I love. You're so talented, both of you. It's such an honor to work with both of you on this project. I've studied the reason why he hated Dallas so much, and what I come to the conclusion was it was to get the Fort Worth guys off their butts. He said, "Do you want those bastards in Dallas to win it? You guys got to do it here." And so there was a verb, he stole businesses from Dallas, and the headline in the paper was, "We've been Cartered again." What's your thinking on why he hated Dallas so much? And that's the comedic theme that goes through the whole play, which makes the play a success in the 817 area code. Those people, us. What's your theory?
What I think about Amon was, he left school in the 8th grade, and he had such work and determination he was going to be successful. And you talk about all the money he gave away, even before he had his vast amount of wealth caused by the oil in West Texas, and West Texas, he was still giving away money. And many times it was very tight, but he gave that money away. I think it's because, in my mind, Amon was such a poor boy that rose up that when he dealt with Dallas people, they looked down on him a little bit because of his lack of a Harvard education or whatever education possible. And he kind of resented that. And he was as good a businessman, if not better, than any of them. And yet, I think
he was a smart man.
Oh,
he was very smart. He might not have had the degree that some of the people in Dallas had, but he was a smart man.
Yeah.
And I think he was trying to say that, like, every man is important.
Yeah.
Not just the people with all the money and all the degrees. And so he created that environment in Fort Worth. And
Amon Carter talked to everyone.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anybody he wouldn't talk to and befriend. And, doing the play, we met a few people that actually knew him, like Bobby Wygant and a few of the older patrons that would come in. There was one lady that came in. She said, "I was there the day that Amon Carter and Eisenhower and Truman, Margaret Truman, came and dedicated the Will Rogers statue in front of the Will Rogers Coliseum. She said, I was in second grade and we walked across the street from our elementary and we were there. So we met those, but I met more people that knew Amon Jr., who took over after Amon Sr. And everybody talks about how Amon Jr. was such an incredibly kind man. I think they both had that ability to reach out and to be really a part of the community.
Mm-hmm. And I think what Kelvin said is really important, that he would talk to anyone in the script. He says, I'll talk to anyone from paper boys to presidents. And so class and money, it didn't matter to him. People were people.
I can illustrate that with a really cool story. Can you show the Westerner poster? This was a Gary Cooper movie, which he played Judge Roy Bean. No, he wasn't Judge Roy Bean, but he won an award for this play. And this play was supposed to open up in Dallas, and Amon found out about it. The world premiere in Dallas, he said, we can't have this. So he talked to Samuel Goldwyn and said, move the world premiere to Fort Worth. And he did. Can you show the picture of Amon and Gary Cooper? And that, he just stole Gary right out from under Dallas, and they premiered that movie in Fort Worth. And I mean, that's just incredible. The thing about him is, if a famous movie star or pilot or somebody came to Fort Worth, he scooped him up, he put him on Channel 5, he interviewed on WBAP radio, and he had a front page story on the Star Telegram. So he had all this power to control what people heard. You know,
he also put them up at his Sweet 10G over there at the Fort Worth Club. Jimmy Durante once said, I always like to go to Fort Worth because he said, you go there, you stay in the nicest hotel, you eat filet mignon, and Amon Carter pays for it all.
Yeah. Can you show the picture of him dancing? There he is. Look at that. Now, how many newspaper publishers are going to do a dance in front of all those people? He was a wild man. He dressed as a cowboy. Can you show that cowboy shot? He dressed as a cowboy because he thought that's what people wanted to see. His phrase was, hooray for Fort Worth and West Texas. I want to show also the burial, his mausoleum. If you could, there you go. The reason I bring this up is because, Kelvin, you go to this mausoleum sometimes and you talk to him, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Before we do a show, I usually make my way out there and say, hey, Amon, I hope you'll bless this show, and I hope that we're making you smile. I hope we're telling your story like you would like to have it told. And it just it does me good, and I don't know, it just helps me a little bit when I go out there. I mean, I don't want to act like I'm crazy or something, but it's just kind of a neat thing. And you know, I got to meet George Ann before she passed away, which was Amon's daughter-in-law, the last of the second generation alive. And her family's out there, and Ruth's out there, and it's a beautiful place out there. And I don't know.
I think that's cool that you do that, you know. Can you show the pictures of the Scott Theater? This was really, when we presented it at the Scott Theater in Fort Worth, we had a full house of 400, 500 people. And, you know, we've done 61 shows and we had a lot of sellouts. It's gone beyond my sensibility about how well this play would do. I thought nobody was going to ever hear about it or see about it. And you guys were picked by Rick Blair to do this. And Connie, tell a story about my influence in your setting this up, or my lack of influence in setting this up.
Well, and this was another part of being a part of this show that was very special. Number one, of course, getting to work with Kelvin, my dear friend, and meeting you, and then getting to work with you. And we had the opportunity to take the script at the very beginning and then kind of we did a reading, and then found where we could tweak things, move things around. And you were just so gracious, Dave, to allow us to do that. When it was the two of us were there rehearsing, and we would think, this is going to flow better. It would be better to put this section in Act 2, move this section to Act 1. We had just some ideas about adding things, and you gave us the yes button.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember at the very beginning we were emailing back and forth, and you asked why when the Katrine. Remember, there was a character, Katrine.
Yeah, his assistant.
And I wanted to cut her out.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of other things in that first email, and you were like, why? And I responded back, these were the reasons. And you were like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so.
And it's funny because in the book, Katrine lives. But in the play, she got cut,
Well, she still lives because she's on the phone. We just don't see her.
Right.
I mean, exactly. Amon talks to her, so we know she still lives. She's just not a character that comes on stage in the play. It just, I don't know. And I think making it into a one-man show, there's power.
Yeah.
It just reiterates the power of Amon when he was alive.
While we're on Katrine, Amon had what he would call his bad spells when he would get very angry, and he would fire Katrine a whole lot. And Katrine he goes, "You're fired," and she'd go out and she would sit at her desk and continue to work, and then he'd walk out in a couple hours and not say a word to her. And after he died, Katrine ran the scholarship for years and years until her death. Yeah. She was actively a part, and they kept her on salary because she continued to do a lot of stuff for Amon, even though he wasn't alive anymore.
In today's world, she would have been deputy publisher, but back then she was just kept as an administrative assistant. Mm-hmm. Can you show the picture of Connie working on the script? That's really the first time I worked with you when you were going through the script, and I'll always remember, look at that smile on your face. You had no idea that we were about to produce a hit award-winning play.
Right.
And can you show the picture of Amon talking to FDR? There you are at your desk, and you're talking to Franklin Roosevelt, and you're telling him that you want what's now the Lockheed Martin bomber plant, airplane factory, to be. Well, tell the story, Kelvin. What happened there? Why were you on the phone with FDR?
Well, it was before World War II. Mm-hmm. And what happened was they were planning on helping Great Britain at this point. So they were going to build a bomber plant. And so all these cities applied to get the bomber plant, and Tulsa applied and Fort Worth applied. There were other cities, but they found out 13 days before the announcement that Tulsa was going to get the bomber plant. So, oh my God, Amon exploded. He starts doing all kinds of incredible things. He starts contacting all the politicians he knows. I don't want to give a lot of the funny stuff away, what he does, but I mean, he starts every favor he ever did, he calls in. And 13 days after they announced that Tulsa's going to get it, they announced Fort Worth's going to get one too. Now, what people didn't understand at that point was, hey, why do we need two super large plants? And they built them anyway. Little did we know, on December 7th, 1941, we were going to be attacked in the Pacific. So the United States was able to produce twice as many bombers, enough for the Atlantic, enough for the Pacific. Literally, Amon changed the history of our country because we were more prepared to fight World War II. If he had just sat back and let Tulsa have the plant in Fort Worth, think about how many people and how many satellite businesses have been created over the years because we do have Consolidated Plane Factory, which turned into General Dynamics, which turned into Lockheed.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up as a child, I didn't realize it, but I knew a lot of kids whose parents worked at Lockheed Martin. I didn't know what it was, or it was General Dynamics back then. I didn't know what it was, but that business has brought so many jobs and prosperity to Fort Worth. And then, throw in his bringing Bell Helicopter here and General Motors over in Arlington. It's fascinating. In fact, we talk about how people came from West Texas to work at these jobs. And what's ironic about it, Dave, is my mom came from West Texas to work at a job in Fort Worth, to leave Muleshoe, Texas, where life was not going to give her anything. So,
and my husband is retired from, Lockheed Martin. I mean, he started when it was still General Dynamics.
Ray, who is the technical director of our play.
Ray, who also runs all the tech.
Yep.
And so it's a family affair here.
Yeah, I call this a true to life comedy because everything in the play is actually true. I found speeches that he made, and I didn't have to make up words. And the overture, which Connie, you and Ray created, which is really cool, which is the Ray Price song called Fort Worth, Texas. And if you haven't heard that, go to YouTube, type in Ray Price, the Fort Worth, Texas. We have the rights to use the song. It's a fantastic song, and it's our overture. I don't think we mentioned that you both are retired teachers, have we? And not only are you a retired teacher, Kelvin, but you're in your 8th year as a board member of the Birdville School Board.
Yes.
And I don't know how you have time. And Connie, you're a community volunteer. I don't know how you guys have time to put on 62 plays, but you've done it.
Busy people get things done.
Yeah, that's true. And you guys are the epitome of that.
And we both taught theater together for a while. And so when it came to working on the script, that was something we did all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, the script was like 60 pages, and it wasn't meant to be a comedy. But one time when I watched it, and I've seen almost every performance, you got 135 laughs. You turned my drama into a true-to-life comedy. And that's because your improvisational skills are off the charts. And so I think you must have been a real buster of your kids back in high school. You must have really teased them and called them nicknames. That's the way I picture you.
Yeah, well, I had a motto, always get the last word. So we always did that. My kids went back and forth with me, but I taught. And it was very important to me that I taught every day. And so we did, but we had a good time at the same time. I will tell you, Dave, you talk about being a comedy, and it is a comedy, but it's also a drama.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it's an emotional roller coaster, and that always makes for good theater. When you laugh 1 second, and so many times I've heard audience members say they were brought to tears. It's an emotional roller coaster. And people come to see our plays. I was with my junior high English teacher yesterday, and she taught me in 7th grade and 9th grade. And she told me, she said, I've been to your play 4 times.
Yeah, a lot of people have been multiple times.
Multiple times.
Yeah. That's why this opportunity in Grapevine, July 12th and 13th is so important. 3 shows. Go to amonplay.com, and we're selling tickets like crazy. July 13th, Amon Carter Day in Grapevine, Texas.
And I think it's not just the emotional roller coaster, but the audience is part of the show.
Yeah.
And so you walk away. I mean, I've seen it more than anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
because I saw it every rehearsal, and I've seen every performance except 2, and I still am connected. And it's the relationship that Kelvin builds with the audience, which I think it is the same as the relationship that Amon built with the people of Fort Worth. And it's all about relationship.
Good point.
It's as close to being with Amon as anybody can be in this day and time. And people leave. One of the nicest compliments I ever got, she said, I came It was a person I directed. And she said, I came and I knew Kelvin was in the play, but when I left, she said, I believed you were Amon Carter.
Yeah.
And we do that. We do the best job we can at presenting this man, his strengths, his weaknesses, his life, his impact. It's an incredible ride.
The ultimate Texan.
Yeah.
Tell us a story about the Shady Oak Cat, why that's important.
Well, this here is called the Shady Oak Cat. It was made by Peter Brothers in downtown Fort Worth. And everyone who came to Fort Worth who was prominent in their field got Shady Oak Cats. If you were an old man and you were in big business, you got a hat. If you were, of course, Will Rogers got a bunch of them because Will Rogers was Amon's best friend. And at the time, the biggest star in the United States, Gary Cooper, the Firestones, the Rockefellers, everybody who came to town. And if you weren't coming to town, Amon arranged for you to make sure you got to Fort Worth and hopefully avoided Dallas.
Well, and talk about how that hat becomes your time machine.
Oh, yeah, it becomes my time machine. I raise it up. I say here, I snap there, and we go there backwards or forwards. That's what we do with this. It becomes my time machine.
And I think that's a really important part of the show. It's not in chronological order.
Right.
It jumps around. And so I think that is a great part of the show, that it's not just chronological. And that hat allows us to do that.
Yeah.
I tell you what, my favorite part of the play, though, is when I get to the end and I get to tell everybody the impact of Amon Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you rewrote that ending, as a writer, I must point out.
Mm-hmm.
You added some lines. We're not going to use them now, but they actually make people cry. You get a standing ovation every single time you do it. It's really quite remarkable. How has your life changed? Kelvin, you get recognized in public.
Yeah, I was at a restaurant on Saturday, and this woman came up to me and said, "Hello, Amon." I said, "Oh, hi. How are you?" And a lot of people call me Amon now, and it's
you could
really
be called,
kind of
you could be
embarrassing.
called worse.
Yeah,
you look more and more like him as years go by. I mean, you look more and more like him. It's kind of phenomenal, So what do we have to look forward to with this play? We have more shows coming up in Bowie, where his hometown was, and
Keller
and Fairview. And probably we're working. Should we tell people what our grand goal is? We're working on trying to get our Dallas debut, which Amon wouldn't want us to do, which is why we've never done one. But we're trying to get it in the AT&T Performing Arts Center. That's our golden plan. And that will be the Dallas debut. We'll have some fun with that.
And what's funny about it is we roast Dallas. We roast Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
And people who come from Dallas love the show. They love it. They love it when we roast them. But
yeah,
it's really fun.
It's 214 versus 817. With the final minute that we have in this, I just want to tell you from the bottom of my heart how honored I am to be working with you guys on this project. We have had so much fun, so much success. I adore you both. You're so talented. I couldn't have done it without you. This has been the greatest experience for me. It helped me understand Texas, helped me become a Texan, and I really love you both. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for trusting us.
We'll see you at the Palace Theater in Grapevine this weekend.